Welcome back to the Immigrant section. I'm your host, Abbas Wahab, and in the studio today, we got my boy, Omer Jamal. How are you, man?
Good, man. What's up?
Not too much, man. Thanks for coming in. I appreciate having you, bro.
Thank you for having me, brother. Thank you for having me.
It's hard to line you up. You got to have a Saturday, huh? You got that tight schedule.
My bad, but I appreciate that. I appreciate setting you that up, man. Thank you.
Man, I see you got one of those popular shirts nowadays that just have... you don't even know the context of the shirt. It just has four major city names: London, NYC, Miami, Tokyo.
I got this from Australia.
Oh yeah,
Yeah. I got this from Australia. I took an ice cold shower today, and I tossed this bad boy on. So,
yeah. Do you believe in that cold showers?
Oh yeah.
Oh, it's the best,
Big
right?
believer.
It's the best. Do you go cold from the beginning, or do you go hot, clean up, and then go cold?
So I normally go like just in the end, 30 seconds cold shower.
Yeah.
But my hot water went out yesterday, so I'm like, I had a bunch of shit planned before coming here too. So I'm like, I gotta go like take a proper shower. So I took an ice cold shower, 15 minutes, but I felt recharged, man.
15 minutes?
15 minutes. I did it properly today.
Oh my God. So you're probably feeling amazing.
You're energized because you put yourself through pain, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's I guess it gets adrenaline going a little bit. Like it gets you into that fight or flight state. That's why you get that wakefulness.
Exactly.
They say, cryotherapy?
I haven't. That's a sports thing, right?
It's like sports athletes have been using it as like a rehabilitation method for a long time, I think. And now it's just kind of like flowed into like just normal use where people, I don't know how much time that maybe they book it for 5 minutes or something, but you stand in it. It's a liquid nitrogen cooled like cabin.
Yeah.
So the air is cold as fuck. It's like minus whatever, ridiculous. And you just got to get in there and just immediately focus on your breathing. It's like 2 minutes in there is supposed to be like tough. Rogan's talking about it all the time.
That's crazy. Know what I mean? That's crazy. Yeah, I feel like those things you gotta like level up and like continue to push yourself to get to that level.
Yeah, you can't do 2 minutes right out the top. It's like, remember when you started doing ice cold showers?
Yeah.
It was hard at the beginning, right?
Super hard.
You turn it, you're like,
dude, 5 seconds is like you're
and you're like, yeah, I feel good. You jump out.
Yeah, 100%.
I listened to the episode Wim Hof on Joe Rogan. The Iceman?
Somebody just told me about that. Somebody just recommended that episode to me. So it's on my watch later thing on YouTube, right?
Oh, it's amazing, man. And the guy, what he is able to like actually achieve in real life right now, it's unbelievable. And like his whole thinking behind it is like any human is capable of this. I'm not an extraordinary person. This is just a result of absolute like breathing control.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And he gave the big push to do cold showers. That's why I started doing it.
Breathing's everything, man. I think breathing's everything. And I'm not sure, like, I think we've spoken a little bit about meditation and stuff. Like, I think you just get a certain level of awareness into, like, what you're doing. Your thought process is a little bit more clear. So I think it's super, super important. Like, every day it's something you got to do.
Yeah, it's the basis. It's like breathing. Now as an adult, I'm realizing meditation in general is like, you know, growing up, you always, if your computer got too slow, you would clear the RAM or you'd restart it.
Yeah.
But as a human, you don't have those techniques. That's what meditation is for humans. It's like clearing the RAM.
Exactly. And you need that data dump. I think
exactly, yeah.
You need to meditate and then you need to like journal your thoughts out, like that data dump outside, just write down your thoughts. So whatever sort of in your mind, it goes in that data dump of like just whatever sort of your day-to-day is going, you write it down and you meditate as well. That's how you get that clear RAM because we are a software if you think about it.
What is your daily schedule as far as meditation, journaling, all that? Are you good with it?
Yeah. So I'm super consistent with it. I've sort of been doing it for, I'd say like 3 or 4 years now. And I'll get up the first 2 hours of my day. I'll try not to be on the phone or anything.
Okay.
So I'll get up. I'll basically meditate for about 15 to 20 minutes.
Immediately? Like that's the first thing?
No, after shower.
Okay.
After shower.
Yeah.
I'll probably meditate for 15, 20 minutes. I'll probably journal for another 15, 20 minutes. And then I'll go into starting my day.
And when you journal, do you journal what you plan to accomplish that day?
Not really, just like what my thoughts are. It could be like the weirdest thing that's going on, but I kind of just write whatever my thoughts are. So not really planning, just whatever sort of going on in my mind. And I think that helps you with anxiety and just like carrying out your day sort of in that moment without having to worry about anything external sort of coming your way.
A lot of pro comics recommend they swear by it. Early journaling in the morning and journaling later in the night. Their approach is to write out what you want to accomplish that day, but anything that kind of is lingering in your mind from the day before or whatever can be data dumped in there as well. And I feel like that's kind of what you're doing?
Absolutely, absolutely. And you add components of it too, right? So like I write, I'm super grateful for like this and this happened. Like it's a variety of things that you do, but I think you toss in there like appreciation, like what your game plan is, like what your thought process is, just all these sort of lingering thoughts that are in our mind, you know? So
What got you on that? Do you remember?
my
4 years.
Yeah. My mentor at my previous job, he was big into it, and
You want to give him a shout out?
I don't think he'd want that. So we'll keep his name under the radar.
This is a corporate gig?
He's a corporate gig.
Okay,
yeah.
okay,
This was at CIBC when I was at CIBC.
Oh, shit. Shout out to CIBC.
Yeah. So maybe they could be a sponsor.
Yeah.
You know.
Okay. Wow. We are very open to sponsors.
Yeah.
Fleshlight just rejected our proposal, and
So he's the one who got me into it, right? And I sort of just took it upon a practice, and I did it consistently. And honestly, it's made a big difference in my life. It's just made me more calmer, and it's just made me a better person, I'd say.
I always want to start journaling. Because it gets recommended from every direction. I'm like, yeah, I got to get on this. And then I'll do it a couple days, and then like I will see benefit, right? Because I'll just feel clearer minded going into like the bulk of what I need to complete that day. But then I don't follow up with it. I just get lazy. But meditation is a thing that has immediate benefit. And I'm a lazy person. If I don't see like, I like to think I'm long-term approach things with a long-term mindset.
Yeah.
But meditation has immediate benefits. Like
Absolutely.
if you do mindfulness for 10 minutes when you're stressed or anxious, I bite the hell out of my fingernails when I'm anxious.
Yeah.
And when I can tell I can't keep my fingers out of my mouth, I'm like, yo, you need to stop. And you need to go sit down. Thankfully, I have a backyard with a bunch of grass. So I literally just sit on a chair. I'm like, you got to do 10 minutes, set the timer.
Absolutely, man.
And it's like I took some anti-anxiety medication.
Absolutely. It's a game changer. It's a game changer for anybody who's sort of, and I think anybody, my mentor, he used this example. He's like, if you write like cursive or you write kind of like squiggly and your writing's not clean, it's probably a form of your mind racing fast. And when your mind races fast, that's when you sort of have anxiety, right? That's your day-to-day anxiety.
Yeah.
So just a way to sort of mitigate that is just setting aside, especially in this world, man, Instagram, like Snapchat, Facebook, whatever it is, that everything's on our phone, right? So it just contributes more to that anxiety. And I think when you take 10 to 15 minutes a day and just focus on you yourself, focus on your breathing, there's tons of guided meditations out there and things of that nature. You just set yourself up to attack the day with a clear head. You know what I mean?
I completely agree. And I remember growing up and even in being in university and high school, the culture around meditation was this hippy dippy thing.
Yeah.
You know? People always say meditate, meditate. I always thought that was like you're like in like a white sheet and you've got your like legs crossed in a way that I'm not flexible enough to achieve. And you're levitating because you've reached some level of like you know what I mean? Like,
like some, yeah.
Yeah, like you've reached the higher level, right?
Yeah,
like you've reached enlightenment. You know, that's what I thought it was. I didn't realize it was just set aside time to focus on your breathing.
That's it.
Yeah,
that's it. And you'll notice when you do it consistently, just like any habit, it becomes a constant part of your day. Right. So the days that I won't meditate and I'll have like a packed day at work or something, like I'll see myself like I'm more agitated, I'm more like fidgeting, I'm moving my fingers around or something like that. And the days that I meditate, which is most of the days, like I'm good. I'm level headed throughout the day.
Exactly. It's like it actually. The way it works, it really makes you feel like we are kind of like a software. And this is the same. Dude, the other day I was at a light.
Yeah.
And I looked to my left and there's this like man sitting on a doorstep.
Yeah.
And he's out of it. He's like, he keeps repeating. He goes, "What? I didn't tell you. What? I didn't tell you. What? I didn't tell you." And he's just repeating the same hand movement. And I was like, is this a simulation? Because this guy just looks like he's frozen right now. You know what I mean?
This is just a guy on the street.
Just guy, obviously a mental health case.
Yeah.
But he was repeating movements and words. It was a textbook glitch. You know what I mean?
Right.
I'm like, what the fuck is all this?
Yeah,
like, is this real?
Yeah.
I just want to yell out, mindfulness meditation, bro. Skirt! As if,
Yeah.
So, man, I like to get a quick background for my guests, just for reference. You're Pakistani descent, right?
That's correct.
Were you born here?
No, I was born in Pakistan.
Okay.
I went to school there till grade 12.
Yeah, I
Grade
didn't
7,
know that.
sorry, till 12 years old. Till
Okay,
12
yeah,
years old,
that's a
till
big
grade
difference.
7, till
Oh.
grade 7, sorry. Yeah.
International school or public school or what?
Yeah, international school.
Yeah.
International school. It was kind of like here, so I didn't really have like an adjustment period when I came here. I came here in grade 7.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You
and
just took off running, you know?
just took off running, man. It was a cool experience. I think it really shaped me because, like, growing up in Pakistan, which is like, like obviously you're more grateful for the opportunities that you have over here. Safety is a concern there, and like not everybody gets the same opportunity as they do over here as they would back home.
Exactly.
But going to sort of a good school over there and then coming over here, like I noticed like people even who immigrated in the same year as me, there was a difference between myself and them because, my schooling system was very, like there's this culture that people don't understand of like what schooling is like there. Man, I had lockers there. We had like field trips there. Like it was just like here.
You were blessed with an international school, okay?
Yes, yeah.
So keep that in mind, though. With like, it has a hefty tuition associated with it. This is something your parents put you in. That's not the case everywhere, right?
Yeah.
And there's probably better schools than yours, like the British ones, there's always like a range, a spectrum of qualities of schools. But yeah, you're right. People think you come from Pakistan and you come from the slums or something.
Yeah.
You're like,
I fit right in, man.
Yeah,
I fit right in. Like
yeah.
my first year, I had friends and I was having a good time in first year of school right here.
Were you shocked? Was there any culture shock at all?
I wasn't because like to me, like I was excited.
Were y'all back then watching all the Hollywood movies?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was just like here.
Okay,
Like, there
okay.
was no difference in my day to day,
Americans and like who expat wise, is it all Pakistanis with parents that are like have plans to move them out of there for like further education, or are there actually like other cultures in the school?
There was a white guy who was in school with us.
Yeah, he was just lost.
Isaac DeHart. If Isaac, you're seeing this, man, what's up, Isaac?
Yo, shout out Isaac DeHart.
But yeah, I think that's sort of the culture there, right? Like I think university level education there obviously is not the level where education is over here. There's many people who are very, very established over there, but I think generally speaking, the parents they try to send their kids off to university. So even if they weren't able to like immigrate or emigrate to another country, they try to send their kids off so they could get a better education and build a better life to them. I think
Like international schooling wise?
exactly.
Yeah, at my university, I had a bunch of international Pakistani kids, right? So and they come super prepared. You know what I mean? Like from an academic perspective, like I did engineering.
Yeah.
Not I had one buddy, Shazib. Shout out to Shazib. This guy. They come super prepared. Like, do you remember when you came in 7th grade? Were you way ahead in the math? Because you hear that all the time.
Dude, I was the worst student.
Oh,
I was the worst student. I actually found school to be easier here than back home.
Oh, that's what I'm saying though. Like I always hear that. Like you're 3 years ahead in math.
Oh, yeah.
In other countries, and you come here and you're like, I did this 3 years ago.
Oh yeah, dude. I had like C's, D's, F's. Like I wasn't getting through school at all. I was the worst student in the class back in the day, back in Pakistan. Here, when I get here, I'm like, oh, I'm getting B's, I'm getting some C's, I'm getting some A's too. I'm like, okay, this is easy. I can do this.
Nothing changed, just your location, huh?
Just my location.
Same effort, everything.
Same effort. I thought schooling was easier. There, you don't have to memorize anything over here, right? Over there, you have to memorize stuff.
That's all about memorization.
It's all about memorization. I suck at memory. I don't remember anything. I don't remember what I had for breakfast yesterday.
Yeah, here they push that critical thought angle. You know what I mean? Of
Yeah.
like troubleshooting, not as much as they should, but they do that a little bit.
Yeah, schooling here is different. Schooling here is very different. But even when I think about school right now, I think like people in general, like universities, schools, colleges, whatever, like you get out of it thinking that you're gonna go get this 4-year degree and like the world's gonna be your oyster.
Exactly.
It's not the case, man.
That's the what they sell you on so well.
Exactly. I think, and I'm saying this 4 or 5 years graduate from university now. I think like the real education starts after university. Without self-education, you're not getting anywhere in the real world.
That's why I'm thankful the university I went to, they had that co-op program.
Right.
So I started getting like a pretty obvious hint that corporate was not for me, even before I graduated.
Yeah.
But I was like convincing myself, oh, that's because like I'm a low level like intern.
Right.
Once I get the full-time job after I graduate, then this will be better. As if like the more money and like associate position is gonna
You're
make
gonna be
things better.
happy. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I thought. That's what I thought, right?
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
I was still so in the mindset that I'm getting the degree. The degree is the solution. What, like, you know what I mean? That's all I know.
Yeah.
It's like you get the degree and everything is good, right? That's what
That's how we're framed to think, right? Think about it. Like your parents tell you that, your teachers tell you that. That's all your brain has been fed since such a young age. That's how that's what's sort of in our mind.
So that's a good segue into the fact you are now you've gone into the startup route. How many years of corporate did you do before? I mean, your job is still, I would say, corporate in the sense of like the work you do, but it's startup vibe. It's completely different. But how many years of corporate as like bottom of the ladder kind of guy before you were like?
Yeah. So I was in co-op program as well. And I did everything from being a mail paper pusher to data entry to cold calling to like the top of the corporate ladder in my most previous job where I was a manager at CIBC Asset Management, right? And I think in total I did like close to 7 years or so. And I think that was invaluable to helping me do what I'm sort of doing right now because I understand like what that world's like, which is a very different world.
Exactly. I agree completely. Even now, completely out of corporate, completely out of the sink. I was in there for years. I operated like, I would see the mindset that a marketing department would have, and the mindset that a finance department would have. And now that like everything I do is pretty much my own little efforts, hustles, whatever you want to call it, right? You know, my own enterprise, everything falls under the umbrella that is me.
Yeah.
My stand-up, my podcasting, sketches, whatever.
So did you think you learned anything from the corporate
I
world?
did an immense amount of things, and they transfer over here. Just like how you approach, advertising a show that you did, like how to be honest with the data. Because now the things I do, there's data coming in.
Right.
And if I never did that corporate environment, I would not know how to actually look at and process and interpret it. You know, I just see numbers and
exactly. So I think it's super important that people have to do like. There's a stigma that people don't want to be corporate or whatever, but you still need that experience.
But it's the end all be all for a lot of people, though. It's like
it is, but I also think it teaches you like the real life skills in terms of like just how things are sort of working, right? And when you feel confident in yourself that you can sort of take that jump, such as like what you sort of did, what
you did as well,
right? Then you could sort of go down that path. But without learning it, you're in this like wishy-washy land, right? You're entrepreneur, like you're just trying to get shit done, but you're not actually doing like the right things.
And you can still absolutely do it. You could skip your undergrad, you could skip all that and make a very successful company.
Absolutely.
You're just working against the grain. You're working, you're kind of swimming upstream.
You got it.
And you don't know how to swim, so to speak. You know, corporate teaches you how to swim. Like from an analogous point of view,
100%.
They show you how to float in water.
Yeah.
So you have a better time once you're operating your own vessel, so to speak.
Yeah, couldn't have said it better.
Well, that was like convoluted as fuck. I think. That was like so many different analogies. Boat, water. Do you remember the moment where you were like, I need to be behind the helm. I need to be at the driver's seat. I like all this, but I don't like having to like summarize things for people. I don't like having to answer to people. Was it a drive like, yo, I want to be my own boss? Or was it like an opportunity like, yo, I have an amazing idea and I need to dip it?
Yeah, so I'll tell you exactly what happened. Like I was on the sales floor and we used to have this thing called Power Hour. So 11 to 12, everybody picks up the phone and we're just smiling and dialing. So it's like 26 of us.
I love how fucking many rhymes you have right here. I could tell this was, did it always say sell? What are all those acronyms for selling?
Like spin sell? Like, what are you talking about?
KISS was keep it simple, stupid, no, always
ABC,
sell.
always be closing.
Always be closing. I love that. Did anybody ever say that even jokingly?
Yeah, of course. Those are sales guys.
Yeah.
So we used to have this thing called Power. Everybody's just smiling and dialing. And you know, like you're doing this for 2 or 3 years, and I thought it was a complete waste of time. I'm like, you guys are paying us good money to do this. Like, we're making 6 figures, and basically we're glorified telemarketers.
Yes.
It's like, what's going on here, right? It didn't make sense to me. So I had a conversation with my boss, and I basically, for my job, I figured out a way we had to get appointments. That was the basic function of our job. That was the targets that we were measured upon. So I figured out a way to send emails at mass to book those appointments. So my thesis was that during power hour, if I'm sitting here, how many dials can I maximally make? Like maybe I can make 30, maybe 40 if I'm really energized for the day, right? But if I send out, call it 600 emails in that morning, I'm probably going to get better results than the 4 appointments that I booked. I'll probably end up getting like 15, 20 appointments, maybe more. So it's a no-brainer. Like why do I need to do that job? So I brought this idea forward to my manager. And I said to her, I'm like, can't all of us just send these emails and we don't have to make these calls? And she says to me, Omer, that's a great idea, but if I let you do that, we'd all lose our jobs around here. So that's when I started thinking, I'm like, man.
Yeah, we're not operating in like, the priority here is not to complete this. The priority here is job security.
Right. And I'm this like 25-year-old, like driven, ambitious guy. Like I want to make it to the top, right?
That's such a buzzkill to hear.
Yeah, at 25.
Yeah.
It's like, what's going to happen when I'm 32, when I'm 38, when I'm 45? Like, am I just going to be like, kind of like, sheltered in that thinking a little bit?
This is too efficient. This may jeopardize the size of the team. I don't want to.
Exactly. So that was kind of my thought process. I think, and I was always in sales, and I was always like, this is something that I think I could do on my own, right? And that's when I'm like, okay, I'm going to take the jump in, and it's the equivalent.
So that was the moment.
That was the moment.
And what happened that day where you were like, okay, I need to give my 2 weeks notice? Or
No. So I
need to figure out my own venture?
Yeah. So I wasn't one of those crazy things, I'm just going to go quit. And no, I started planning ahead. That's
a very white move, by the way, to just be like, quit before you have a job lined up. You know
I think we naturally, just immigrants and natural, are risk-averse people.
Oh, yeah. You need to line something up. You need to already be working a job for a week and saying that you've been sick for a week.
Exactly. Like, I've always had options. Like, I always set up my options in some way, shape, or form. So that's what kind of spurred my thinking, and I was working on a little like side project with one of my business partners who was at CIBC with me at the time as well, and we continued to escalate on that. Like work on that side project a little bit, and it started to bring some dollars in, and then we're like, okay, if we can get X amount of dollars, we could probably get more, and that's when we started to sort of take the jump in and like, okay, we could do this. Are we going to do this full time? Like, is this what we want to do? Because we knew it was like a risk, like you're leaving a good job, and then the way that I thought about it is like it's like a real life MBA. If you're going to go to school, I always wanted to do my master's, right? It's like if you're going to go to school 2 years, pay 60, 70 grand for a good school, you're paying money, and the hope is that you'll end up getting a job that pays you maybe like 180, 200 or something like that.
Yeah.
You're going in debt to be able to do that.
And have more earning power.
And more earning power now. I was kind of fortunate that I had a good paying job, so I saw what you get in a good paying job. It was my dream job, right? And I'm like, if this is what's getting me, I think like for me, the most important thing is like just my mental sanity. And like, I just want to be happy as a person. Like, I just want to do like what I want. Like, and at the end of the day, like, I think everybody wants freedom, right? Everybody wants to be able to contribute like what's on their mind to make a positive impact in society. Everybody has that somewhere deep rooted in. And I think that was some of the conversations that my business partner and I had at the time, and that's what made us start what we're doing today at Fortuna.
That's amazing. Yeah. Anytime I talk to, I know a lot of kids, in engineering, I come by them and like, like I'll perform instead of in front of students, or I'll run into some like engineer student or whatever. I always, because I've worked in big corporations, I've had clients that are massive. You were out in
Silicon Valley too, I think, right?
I was, yeah. But even before that. So I did pretty much, after I graduated university, I moved to Detroit, right, to work automotive industry, automotive engineering. I was a program manager for a tier 1 automotive supplier. We made fuel tanks for Jeep. The Jeep Wrangler, the diesel version that's out right now.
You were part of that?
I designed the urea tank on that. Urea is like diesel. Diesel cars, they need to spray this ammonia fluid in there for it to reduce and actually meet emission standards. And that like it needs a little tank to hold that fluid. I designed that tank in the Jeep Wrangler, all right? Shout out to everybody with the 2019 Jeep Wrangler. If you got it, you know what I mean? And if you have diesel system issues, holla at your boy, all right? I fucked that shit up. I was like halfway in it designing that thing. It was like, that is the slowest form. That is the most traditional and oldest and antiquated form of corporate that still exists. Massive OEMs. Chrysler, 10,000 employees or whatever. Everyone's got a number. It is the most depressed. I used to walk into the Chrysler Technical Center, CTC it's called, in Auburn Hills, Michigan. The second biggest roof that has this, as far as roof that covers an amount of surface area, they're second only to the Pentagon.
That's crazy.
It's a huge building, right? As soon as I walk in there, I would start sweating from everywhere because I had so much anxiety. This is like the corporate factory, right? I would just walk in and just be like, ugh.
Yeah, that's what happens, right? Like, I think in any...
Oh, just to finish, wrap up that thought real quick. So the piece of advice I give to new engineers, anybody who's about to graduate, get a job at the smallest company possible, because that's where you're going to be able to be flexible. I mean, I'm not like the biggest proponent for corporate, but if you're going to go corporate, get into a startup. And if not a startup, the smallest business possible.
That's how you learn.
You do way more. You talk directly with your team members. There isn't this crazy hierarchy of like the CEO, like 8 floors ahead of you, like who's barely there, who's like on the other side of the world half the time, and they talk about him like a god.
I think corporate is important too, though, because I think corporate teaches you those things that startup land doesn't, right? Startup land is basically following the vision of the CEO or the founders of the company. So yeah, that's great, but you also got to remember that not every startup founder is experienced. So like they could be taking the ship left too, and you're sort of just learning from them. I think the biggest thing that people need to learn, like new grads in general, is like learn how to value your time, right? If you get a job at a startup or you get a job at a corporation, whatever it is, and you're paid, call it $30 an hour, $40 an hour, $50 an hour, whatever the pay is, you have to remember that those corporations are valuing you at that particular rate.
Exactly.
Do you value yourself at $40 an hour for the rest of your life?
You cannot.
You cannot.
Yeah, it's a trap.
It's a trap. So you have to, at some point, start valuing yourself, who you are as a person, and put a dollar figure on that particular thing and make it from there. And that only happens just in the world that we live in when you're doing your own thing.
You
need to have equity.
Have you ever heard of Naval Ravikant?
Oh, I love him.
Oh, okay.
I've been listening to his podcast lately a lot.
I like every episode.
Amazing.
That guy's pretty much a self-made Indian billionaire
Yeah.
who's like also reached enlightenment. He has the most... And when it comes to equity, we must just... Like, you know what I mean? He's got the best point. But that guy, I love his vision, the tips he gives.
Absolutely.
And he pretty much said from a young age, he gave himself a $5,000 an hour rate.
Yeah.
Just an obscene rate.
Yeah.
So it's like if he had to go return something and he'd make $150, he's like, it's going to take me 2 hours to return this. Fuck that. That's way less.
Yeah.
And that mentality got him to where he's at,
Absolutely.
right? It sounds like it's ridiculous.
You can get sort of stuck in this, like, you know, I am getting paid for the job that I have, and I am responsible to do everything else that's sort of around me, which is a lot if you live in an urban center sort of like Toronto. Like, just getting into the city itself is a 3-hour a day type of task. That's 3
Well,
hours.
it can be. I don't know how far you're living out, but...
I'm living in Oakville, but a lot of people commute, man. Like, people commute 2 hours a day just to get to their jobs.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So I think, like, you have to value your time, and I think that's what Naval's talking about a lot. Like, put a dollar figure on your time. And I think one of the other things that he says, which really, really resonated with me, is like, have equity in whatever it is that you're sort of doing, right? Like, you're doing this podcast, right? Like, people used to pay not too long ago, like, just to have a 30-second commercial. Like, let's say you're a car dealership, you would pay thousands of dollars to have a 30-second commercial on a CP24, the local news channel, whatever that may be. Today, you have the opportunity.
With the hopes, and all they can do is project the eyes watching. You don't get any numbers back from who saw it.
Exactly.
It's just like this abyss that your money goes in.
Exactly. Today, you have YouTube, you have Snapchat, you have Facebook, you have Instagram. These are your local news channels, if not more. That's your audience.
Yeah, media is all like piecewise now, free online. Like the whole game for comedy now, pretty much the whole new model.
Yeah.
And the messiah for this right now is like Andrew Schulz.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know of Andrew Schulz, the comedian in New York. The whole, and actually Gary Vaynerchuk pushes the same thing.
Right.
The whole thing is you create content for free. You establish your brand. You create all this free quality content. And when you tour, people feel like they owe you a visit.
Right.
You're in their town practicing the art that you work on, and you've been providing all this free content, quality stuff for them for free, putting it up there.
Yeah.
It's almost like okay, now I need to reciprocate. Now I got to go out, watch this guy. He's here. He's in Philly. He's in whatever, right?
Yeah.
That's the whole model. It used to be, grind. 7-8 years, you'll put together a pretty good act. You'll get invited to Just for Laughs. When you're at Just for Laughs, the industry will come out, and industry agents from LA, New York will come out, and they will sign you to a sitcom. And the sitcom is based off your life. Yeah. And then the sitcom gets a lot of views and you blow up. You should go to movies and you quit comedy and you're good. And you're just lingering in Venice Beach. You know what I mean? Like that was that's gone. That is just a gone old, as far as it's old Hollywood at this point. Pretty much. That's not a system anymore.
Right.
Because there's nothing on TV. The TV media platform is like dying.
Media in general, man, like media today, the way that it influences people is just nuts. Like you just take a look at Instagram, right? Like people live and die by following people on Instagram. Like talking about like a simulation or whatever that is. The internet is a simulation.
Yeah.
Like you're sold these dreams, you are following people on Instagram, you're addicted to this thing, but these apps are also made for you to be addicted on, right? And that's what you're spending your time on.
Maximize your time on there, yeah.
That's what you're spending your time on. So you can decide, and I think this is what you're sort of alluding to as well, is you can decide to be a content creator on that and sort of market your message, whatever that is, sort of, to that audience.
Put your content in the ecosystem.
Or you could be a consumer.
Yeah.
Right? You could just consume whatever it is that they're sort of pushing out.
Either way, you're consuming. We're all consuming.
Yeah.
But it's like, do I want to also... I have to put stuff into the ecosystem. That's just the nature of the work I do.
100%.
Comedy. That's how it is.
100%.
But like for years, I was just consuming. I'd be watching everybody's story. I'd be going and checking this. I'd realize, and then I'd go look, and I would spend a gig and a half of data in like 3 hours. I'm like, fuck, I got to get off of Instagram.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And Instagram
100%.
will ruin your battery and everything.
It'll ruin your day, man.
Exactly, right? You just feel like shit at the end, right?
Yeah,
you see all these people.
Yeah.
I see your shit, man. That's another thing I wanted to touch on. You're one of those people that, I don't know if you read a book or you listened to something, but you're one of those people that are like hardcore travel and work.
Right.
Did you read the 4-Hour Work Week and did you take that to heart?
That was the first book that I read that inspired me to be like going to the route of entrepreneurship. And it was, again, I think it was also like, I've always it was my background where I grew up in Pakistan, right? It sort of made me very street smart. Like even my younger brothers are different than me. I went to school at grade 7. So, and what it allowed me to do is like, I just took action on the things that they were talking about, a 4-hour work week. And travel was like the thing for me where it's like, how do you learn? Like you're sort of, when you come to Toronto or any big city, you're sort of just like consumed in that culture and that vibe that people are giving off in that city. And don't get me wrong, Toronto is a beautiful city. I live in it, I call it home. But there's a lot
It's a single wavelength. Every city is a different wavelength.
Exactly. You get a different perspective in every place that you go to. And there's different types of people in every place that you go to. And you realize that people are motivated by the same stuff. People are the same, no matter where you go. If you go to Costa Rica, if you go to Toronto, you go to Sydney, you go to Thailand, people are the exact same, right? But there's a divide in culture, generally speaking, in these big cities. That's what ends up happening. Like there's a divide in culture. There's middle class, there's upper class, there's lower class. And people sort of just get stuck in their rut. It's not their fault, but that's just what sort of ends up happening. So travel for me was always like that escape, that freedom to sort of learn different perspectives and learn from what people are doing outside the world, meet amazing people, learn their stories. And it's always been a fuel for me because I've seen people in much worse situations than me. So it allows me to be like more grateful and appreciative of whatever it is that I'm sort of doing.
And it's so valuable from an entrepreneurial perspective as well, because I know personally, I went to Japan 2 years ago for 10 days or so.
Yeah.
And there was like 3 or 4 inventions over there that like, I remember walking into a ramen restaurant there.
Yeah.
And I walk up to like the bar. It's like small town, like you'll see it like in anime, like it's the standard cliche, like ramen studio, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
And I walk in, I go up to the bar. The lady just points to like this machine in the corner that looks like a pinball machine. I'm like, okay. I go up to the pinball machine. it's an ordering machine. You order and then they prep it for you. You don't order at the bar. So this machine's all in Japanese, but the way it's designed with colors, it is completely intuitive, regardless of the language you speak. Of the selection of the broth, the selection of the meat toppings, everything is completely intuitive with lights and everything. There is a Japanese, but there's no need to know the language.
Yeah.
It was an amazing piece of technology. And I looked down at the buttons that you press. Guy, they were so worn out. I'm like, this machine has been here for a decade. I haven't even seen this in North America. This has been used here for over a decade. Japan is like a different world. Like Japan is like a different evolutionary path for humanity altogether. Absolutely. That's the feeling. Have you been?
I haven't been to Japan.
Yeah.
I haven't been to Japan, but I've heard great things.
When I went to Japan, I kind of felt like humanity is like a petri dish. Neat. Like all these countries were just different petri dishes. Because when I went to Japan, I was like, this went a different direction. This feels like a different dimension.
Yeah. But see, that thought process that you had you physically had to go to Japan.
Yes,
How long were you there for?
10 days.
10 days. But still, you embrace yourself in that culture for 10 days, right?
Hot springs, we did the whole 9.
And
everything.
that's how you learned. That's how you got that thought process.
I've never met a racist in a hostel.
Yeah, never.
You know what I mean?
Never.
You've never met somebody who's like traveled to, 5, 6, 7, 8 plus countries and they're a bigot.
Yeah.
Right? You don't really come by that.
Yeah. They're the nicest people, man. I love hostel traveling.
There's something about there's just travel in general forces you to open your mind, forces you to have perspective, right? And it's like you said, everybody is literally the same. At the end of the day, people are just trying to like get a living to eat.
That's it.
Have like some form of recreation. In other countries, there's a lot more like family vibes than some other countries. But like it's 80% of the part, it's going to be the same. It's the same general human vibe.
It's the same. Everybody's trying to work, put food on the table. Everybody wants to be productive with their time, doing something valuable, right?
And I'm such in this mindset. I know, I mean, you probably can experience this a little bit as being like a person of color. I hate that fucking line. Being a person of color, I find that I find it difficult to travel. And no, like,
yeah.
I'm always in my head about like, oh, they're judging me or this or that, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of times I'm really just projecting that shit.
Yeah.
People are not thinking twice about you.
Yeah, man. Honestly, I've heard that a lot, but I personally have never experienced that. And
exactly, because you don't project it.
Yeah,
because you're journaling in the morning. That's my problem. I'm not journaling. I think I need to start journaling. All right,
journaling's huge, but I just think I agree with you. I think it's like you don't. Every single insecurity that you have, whether it's like racism or any other insecurity in general, because even if you drill down to it, like. If you think that you're being racially profiled, there is a case of racism in there.
Yeah.
Right? That's what it is.
That's the mentality.
That's the mentality. And there is an insecurity that usually stems from. You're either nervous or something.
You have some sort of inferiority complex that like is beaten into you as an immigrant.
You got
in a Western culture.
You're always competing.
Like, exactly.
There's something wrong. So I think in general, like to kind of touch on your point that you were speaking about, it's like if you yourself have to work extremely, extremely hard, and this is where meditation, journaling, just self-care comes through. You have to work extremely, extremely hard on yourself where you get rid of your own insecurities. And every single person has different insecurities. So you have to be comfortable with yourself enough that, hey, you know what? I'm going to go to Tokyo. I'm going to go to Australia. And no one's, for lack of a better word, going to fuck with me. Like, I'm going to do what I want to do.
And on that note,
sorry to interrupt you. People will get that energy off of you. And people will treat you how you want to be treated.
Exactly. Perfect example for this. Growing up, I was always afraid of dogs because when dogs were around my parents would freak. They're like, don't go around that dog. There's a dog. Kelp. There's the dog. Come here. There's a dog. There's a dog, right?
Yeah.
So I always had this internalized fear of dogs, and dogs would always bark at me because I would be afraid around them. And then when I remember when I was in the Navy, I lived in Halifax for a summer.
Yeah.
And at my buddy's place. And he had a friend who had a pit bull.
Yeah.
And he would always be there. And at the beginning, and slowly for months, this pit bull grew up from a puppy like around us.
Yeah.
And I realized it was my own fear that the dogs were picking up on all this time, because now it's 100 dogs don't bark at you.
Exactly.
Right?
Dude, exact same story.
It's like, okay, that's their weird training or whatever. I don't put that fear out there. And that's the exact thing you do as an immigrant in travel.
100%. It's so funny that you bring that story up because the exact same thing happened to me. I've been shit scared of dogs my entire life. Not until 2-3 years ago I was comfortable with dogs. And this girl at work, shout out to Kelly.
Yo, shout out to Kelly at CIBC.
Kelly, super friendly with me. We're having a good time. We're just talking over lunch or something. And she's like, what are you scared of? I'm like, nothing. And she's like, there has to be something you're scared of. And then I started thinking about it. I'm like, I guess it's dogs. Dogs is...
This girl's intense. What the fuck? You're like, just give me the Excel file. What the fuck? What are your fears? What the fuck?
We were good friends, so we used to talk. So then she kind of like made me... pointed out towards me that if you're scared of dogs right now, that's going to affect you somewhere down the line, maybe 20, 30 years later, because that's subconsciously in your mind. So I remember that weekend, one of my friends, Fareed, I called him up, I'm like, and he has a Rottweiler.
Yeah.
It's like a massive Rottweiler. And I called him up and I'm like, man, like I need to get comfortable with a dog, help me out. So similar story to yours. That's how I got comfortable with dogs. And then I went to Thailand and played with tigers in a cage with 4 tigers.
Oh
I'm
my
like,
God.
go
Did you get
big
the
or go
picture?
home, man.
Did you get that
Of
picture
course
from
I got
Tinder?
pictures.
Don't they like have those tigers on tranquilizer?
Man, I'm
bro?
not listening to any of that. I'm just
Those
focused
tigers
on...
are on tranquilizers.
I'm focused on getting over my own insecurities, bro. That's what
Bro,
I'm focused on.
I'm trying to overcome myself. You know what I mean? I'm trying to better myself.
That's it, man.
Yeah,
That's
all
it.
right? Yeah.
Keep
they were
life
in a
simple.
Yes, sure they were in an induced coma, but that's
I don't know.
neither here or there. That's just the details, bro. That's just the details. Yo, so I have traveled alone for work.
Mm-hmm.
And I know you travel alone a lot, and you have traveled alone a lot.
Mm-hmm.
For people that never travel alone or have a fear about traveling alone, and you want to sell it to them,
Right.
in like the most like succinct way, what do you say? Like, how do you sell solo travel?
Right. I think the most important thing is like you have to sort of look within yourself and see what it is that you want out of your life. People either will choose a left or a right when they get to their mid-20s or so. So you will either have a fixed mindset or you're going to have a growth mindset. Now, if you go down that path of growth mindset, that involves you being able to take criticism, like heavy criticism.
You must.
You must, not only from yourself, but from people as well, your mentors and
Your
stuff.
peers, your colleagues, your mentors.
Right. And you only get criticism from yourself when you go after the truth, right? If you are at home, you live with, like I live with my brothers or my parents, they're going to sugarcoat the truth. They're going to tell you their perspective of whatever it is. I think to understand what you actually want, like just internally, and that your frame of mind isn't framed, again, back to that conversation that we were having, like you're told to go to university, you're told to get this corporate job, and you're just sort of framed, right?
Yeah,
So
exactly.
in order to get to the truth, which is your own personal talents and stuff, you need to get out of your comfort zone, and you sort of need to go in this unknown, another part of the world, another culture where you don't know anything, and completely be uncomfortable. Like you need to push yourself out of your comfort zone. And I always say you got to look at yourself as an envelope, right? If you're an envelope, you always want to expand that envelope bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And you only expand that envelope by getting over your fears and putting yourselves in uncomfortable situations. So solo travel is that. Pick yourself up, go to another place. And if you want that approach of actually growing as a person, expanding that envelope, that's what solo travel is going to do to you. There's no magic thing that you're going to figure out tomorrow, but it's going to pay dividends 2 or 3, 4 years down the road.
It's the long-term approach.
Exactly.
So you think of solo travel as a benefit from a self-improvement point of view.
Absolutely.
And like self-improvement aside and bettering yourself aside, is it the form of travel you prefer? Do you prefer...
No.
It's definitely a preference to go with friends.
Absolutely.
From like a recreational standpoint.
Absolutely. If I'm taking a leisure trip, I want to go with my friends
Gotcha.
and my close ones. But
Gotcha.
if I am focused on self-improving, which I think everyone should be, if you're in your 20s and you're not focused on your self-improvement, like I don't know what you're doing. You know?
Again, self-improvement right now sounds kind of like how meditation was sold to me 10 years ago.
Right.
This sounds hippie-ish.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
It doesn't mean like, hey, you can stop swearing, you can stop being an angry person.
Yeah, we live in a generation where information is thrown at us at a rapid speed that nobody can take care of, right? So just 20 years ago, if we wanted to Google something on what does what are the effects? I have a bruise over here. What are the side effects of this? Just as a random thing, right? Or I got this pimple over here. Like, what could this? What sort of diseases could this lead to?
Exactly. I have 4 red marks on the tip of my dick. What?
So, anyways, you could basically Google. What I'm trying to say is,
What did Jennifer have?
basically, what I'm trying to say is, you could Google and you have access to information, whatever topic it is that you're trying to get access to. You want to learn about universities, you go do that.
600 million Google results.
Right. But just not too long ago, 25 years ago, 50, even 17, 18 years ago, our parents had to go to the library, right? Get a reference library, see if they have the references within the library, order the research, and it would take 2 or 3 weeks for that research to come through, and then you have access to that information.
So they made shit up. So they speculated.
I think they just got the information, but it took them 3 or 4 weeks to get the information.
Wait. Your parents were going to the library to reference things on how to parent you?
What are you talking about?
Isn't that what you just said? Like your parents would have to go?
No. I am saying access to information.
Yeah. I thought you said parents specifically.
No, I'm just giving an example. Like our parents' age.
Gotcha. I was confused.
Yeah,
okay.
just our parents' age. Access to information 30 years ago, 20 years ago, you had to go to the library and you would have to...
It was a physical retrieval.
It would take you 3 weeks just to get that information.
Yeah.
Today, you go on Google and you're going to get that in a split second. But it's on you to decide what you want to do with that, right? It's on you to decide what it is that you're going to take away and do with that information. So I think people have to understand that you can take that in a positive way and improve yourself, right? Like, that's what access to information is. It's educating yourself. This is how we sort of started off this conversation. You have self-knowledge to educate yourself, or you just become sort of a consumer and just sort of stuck in that rat race.
Yeah. It's like, you know what I realized? Because I was never a big reader.
Yeah.
I was never a big reader. When I started hearing things like the words of Naval Ravikant, and I got like an Amazon audiobooks thing, whatever, Audible.
Yeah.
And I started actually reading. I read like 3 or 4 books that were all like pretty pivotal. I took something from them that I was able to use in my daily life. And then I started realizing, I started looking at like Indigo and bookstores. I'm like, this is just a fountain of every answer is right there. Every answer to my problems is right in these shelves.
Exactly.
And I've just been walking by straight to Best Buy this whole time.
Yeah.
Just looking at Bose headphones or whatever. And like here, I've read Habit Breaking. I forget what book I read, but I would never thought I would have read a book to help me stop biting my nails.
Yeah. But
it works.
It works.
And the power of now. That's what I used to, when I was working in China, I was super depressed because I just landed. Pretty much, I went to Silicon Valley because I was at a dead end with my corporate job in Detroit. And I was like, oh, you know what sucks? Michigan sucks. So if I get a job in California, everything will be great.
Right.
So I get a job in California. Any job. I just wanted to go to California.
The grass always looks greener on the other side.
Always.
Yeah.
I get this job for a company that wants me to be a sales engineer for like Kickstarter. Mm-hmm. When a guy on Kickstarter makes glasses that have holographic glasses, and they get crowdfunded $1 million. Yeah. We're the company that comes up to him being like, we can help you realize that product into the market faster and more effective than you can do alone. Like those are the products that I sold, manufacturing services. So that partnership fell through, and my company they had my salary costs every month that they were not getting any return on.
Yeah.
So they put me as an existing client, they put me as a consultant there in a role called Operations Program Management.
Nice.
Now, this client was a startup in Silicon Valley called Otto. They were making a very fancy door lock.
Yeah.
All right. Imagine like the iPhone of digital locks. As you approach your front door of your house, Bluetooth unlocks it. If Rogers or Comcast is coming to your house to set up your router, you send them a link that they can press that link outside your door and it'll open that door for that window of time you set.
Yeah.
It has all these little features, right? Before I know it, they're launching the product in China. I'm going to China to oversee the launch. And here I am in China working crazy. I never wanted to do this. I just wanted to go to California. Now I'm working
but now
for this
you're in
company.
China.
Now I'm working as a consultant. And you may know this. When you work for a company as a consultant, they don't give you the same leeway they give their full-time employees.
Yeah.
You're a consultant. You're a slave.
Yeah.
We're paying you, and that I think they were paying for me like 14 G's a month or something like that. Yeah. So they would
pay
never
you crazy money.
They would never approve my vacation. They would approve nothing. I was a slave as far as they're concerned. I'd be in China for weeks at a time, overseeing this launch. I'm in a plant. I'm depressed as fuck. All the weekends I would go to Shanghai to perform. There was open mics, English open mics.
You were doing this back then?
Yeah.
That's dope.
I was doing open mics in Shanghai. Now I'd rent, there's these yellow bikes. You know how like bird scooters all over the States? Yeah. In Shanghai, they have these yellow bikes called OFO bikes.
Okay.
You unlock them with like the 2D barcode thing. And I would just bike around Shanghai listening to The Power of Now on audiobook.
That's dope. That's dope. Dude, reading's huge, man. Reading's huge.
That's pretty much what got me into meditation. And literally right after that China, that moment of feeling trapped, I'm like, the reason I'm here right now is because I'm willing to do anything for a number I agreed to. They said they'll pay me this much. I said yes, and now I have to do what they say.
But I would even argue, boss, that I think that experience was very necessary for you to do what you're doing right now, man.
Oh, I'm not saying I regret it. I'm not saying like this was a mistake. I'm just saying this was kind of like the straw that broke the camel's back.
Right.
And it put me in this direction. Exactly. So maybe it was a blessing, right?
Exactly. And like reading is just huge, right? Like people
or listening, absorbing content.
Absorbing content in general is like super, super like reading. It's like having dinner with somebody smart. Like reading that book. Exactly. Right? It's like if you're sitting
and letting them talk the whole time.
Exactly. Right, yeah. And if you have like dinner with a super smart person, right? Even if you take 10% of that, like that's a pretty good yield or dividend or whatever it is that you're sort of getting. That's what a book gives you.
You're getting a meal either way, right?
Yeah, that's what a book gives you.
Are you big? Do you feel like there's any difference between reading and listening for you? As far as retention, interpretation, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, I like to read.
You like to read?
I like to read. I'm not a big fan of Audible or like I've tried it, ebooks. I listen to podcasts quite a bit, but I read.
Shout out to the immigrant section. Tell your friends.
I read a fair bit.
Okay. Are you the guy at the end of the movie that was like, the book was better?
No.
Are you that guy? You're like, bro, you didn't even read the book.
No. I read a lot of like, as you could tell, probably self-improvement and like business-related books and just anything that I'm sort of curious about or I probably read about.
Have you ever read the book that Naval was recommending? What's it called? Skin in the Game?
I haven't read that one.
Skin in the Game. You know what the best part of that book was, to be honest with you? And this is just because... I'm a deeply insecure and shallow person. The best part of skimming, Naval Ravikant, the guy that we've been talking about, recommended this book called Skin in the Game by Nassim Taleb. And it's pretty much a book that was above my brow. Like I tried to skim through this book and it was too low. It was a very high level. I can get the gist of what they're saying. Yeah. Skin in the game, you always have to have skin in the game to make the right decisions, so to speak, right? You can't just be hovering over a circumstance with no skin in the game. Yeah. Right? So that's pretty much what I took from it. Like I just skimmed through it. But the best part of it all was getting to stand in Indigo in front of the business strategy section and just looking at books and see people looking at me, looking at business strategy. I'm like, that's right. The boys out here looking at business strategy. They don't know I do stand-up. You know what I mean? As far as they know, I have a business and I'm trying to strategize. But like, I have a totally different vibe now that I'm in my late 20s around like the bookshelves and the book section. Before I was like, books, that's a dying thing, man. Get a Kindle, you know what I mean? But now I'm like, I look at it differently. I'm like, this is a completely filtered compilation of a single topic that can help you. Like, you just gotta look out for these recommendations.
100%. Dude, I never read books in school, in university, middle school. I was the worst student ever. I never touched a book, ever.
I was a good student, but I never read. I was just like doing math, doing science, being like, if I get good marks, I'll get the engineering degree and life will be perfect.
Yeah, now I read like a madman. I read like a book a week.
Yeah?
I read a book a week. I do speed reading. Like, I consume all types of books.
What's the premise behind speed reading? You just
premise
skim?
behind yeah, well, I think the premise is that you are consuming the content that's relevant. You're never going to remember 100% of a book ever. So you're just taking bits and parts of it and you're just jotting down what it is that you think is important and sort of just taking that away.
So how do you skim what is relevant? Because you don't know what's relevant. Before you start a word, you don't know if this word is relevant or not.
So, like speed reading, there's many techniques for it, right? There's various techniques that different people use. The one that I sort of just use, I just read like the middle of the page a little bit, but any sort of line that I jump towards that sort of stands out at me, I'll read that entire paragraph and I'll continue reading on. Now, if it's a book that I don't need to speed read, I won't speed read. I'll slow read that book.
So if it's a book that like is a wealth of knowledge that's been highly recommended, the whole body of work, you'll read it. Of
course.
And if you're just there in front of random books, you do this technique where you read along the middle of the page and you look for words.
Like I'll read like every third word or something.
Yeah.
Right. And I'll
just look for the words in conclusion. Right?
and I'll just try to take away points from it. And when I'll come across it, it's like reading a newspaper. Do you ever read the entire article?
Well, I never read newspapers.
I don't consume.
If I only read newspapers when people are watching, and I only do it in front of the business strategy section.
Yeah, so like I stopped looking at the news a long time ago. I just look at the headlines. Like if you look at the headlines, you can have a great conversation.
That's a problem. There's a whole call. That's a problem.
But you can have a great conversation with anyone if you just know the headline of the topic that you're talking about, because you just get people talking about that particular topic.
Yeah, it's exactly. It's like when I was at the gym or whatever, seeing sports highlights.
Yeah,
every sport.
Exactly.
You see what Federer did.
You know all the sports.
Yeah.
So reading is, at the end of the day, it's a function of trying to improve your communication skills, right? And if you can sort of refer to, like we refer to Naval in this particular topic. Do you remember every single thing that Naval talked about?
Not at all, no.
Not at all. Likewise, right? But if you just pick up certain aspects of it, you can connect with people better on just a particular book that I might have read. And even if I remember 10% of that book, like I think I have done my job because I remember 10% of that book.
Have you read Yuval Noah Harari's *Sapiens, Homo Deus*?
Amazing book.
Amazing book. That book, *Sapiens* and *Homo Deus*. Homo Deus.
Don't
is like the
speed
future.
read that book, by the way.
How is that book not a mandatory part of the curriculum?
Seriously.
That needs to be part of the high school curriculum.
Seriously.
Legit. I've never felt like I had a more all-encompassing view, bird's eye view of life, the human species, what we are, like history in general. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that guy, he does 2 hours of meditation daily.
It's nuts, dude. All these. I was I was fortunate enough to see Jack Dorsey. He was doing like a panel. This was not too long ago.
I've heard that name before. Who is that?
CEO of Twitter.
Okay, yeah. He was on Rogan, I think, right?
And Square.
And Square?
And Square. He runs two companies. Both are billion-dollar companies. We all know how big Twitter is.
Yeah, and Square's huge too.
Yeah. This guy sleeps for 9 to 10 hours a day. He meditates for 2 hours a day. He walks for 1 hour a day. That's 14 hours of his day, just in activities that people think are non-productive. But to him, this is what he needs to do to be a highly functioning, be in deep work for the 67 hours that he's actually working.
Yes, exactly. I read Yuval Noah Harari's, I forget what, was it a biography or something? I read pretty much how this person is who he is.
Yeah.
And he pretty much went down that same corporate hustle and one day went to some like retreat, some meditation retreat that was like 2 weeks. And after it changed everything for him. Because once he was able to pretty much like achieve mindfulness, he started going hard down the path of authorship. And like the way he puts concepts together, it is the most objective reading I've ever done. And it's like, it's very satisfying he writes in a way that's very satisfying for a quantitative mind, like my own. Yeah. It's just so satisfying. Like he never uses a synonym that's unnecessary. You know what I mean? He keeps it simplistic as possible. And he gives amazing examples, and I was just shocked. Homo Deus, I don't know if you read it. That's the sequel.
Yeah, that's a new one. I've read that one too.
Oh no, the new one is 21 Lessons to the 21st Century or something like that. I read that one as well.
I haven't read that one yet.
Yeah, that one is like a mixture of Homo Deus and Sapiens.
Gotcha. I think books in general are super, super important. It's, to me, like, even when we talk about mindfulness, right? It's about it's just about learning, man. Like, you got to learn. If you're not learning in life, you're not moving ahead. Whatever it is that you're doing, right? You got to be learning in life. And when people, like the guy from Twitter or Naval, like, who went on a meditation retreat and he figured this stuff out, their entire focus is to learn about who they are as people and double down on their strengths, right? There's this wave where, like, hey, you have weaknesses, improve your weaknesses. No, man, it's about, like, figuring out your strengths and doing what you're good at.
Yes. In comedy, they always tell you that. They always say it's important to practice your getting your weaknesses better, like making them your strengths. But instead of obsessing with that, lean into your strength. You cannot be perfect at everything. Mm-hmm. Identify what your strengths are and lean into that. We have this mentality, like you were saying, where it's like, oh, everything will be perfect. The goal is for everything to be perfect.
Yeah.
No, the goal is for you to make your weaknesses destructive.
Yep.
And make your strengths killer.
Absolutely.
You know?
If you talk about comedians, artists, entrepreneurs, anybody who's sort of a creator and impacting society in any shape or form with whatever it is that they're doing, these are the explorers and adventurers of the world.
Of our time.
These are the people who went and found America and put a flag down.
Exactly.
Right? So you have to do this.
Yeah. We're just putting, my versions, I'm just putting bits together, you know?
This is gonna be a big show.
Yeah, just putting bits together. Yeah, I'm the philosopher of our day.
There you go.
Because remember back, we
talked about this.
If you Google any famous figure from like pre-1880,
yeah,
one of their like titles on Wikipedia will always be philosopher.
100%.
No matter what you did, you get philosopher.
For some context, Abbas and I were having lunch, I think this was a couple months back, and Abbas was telling me about his journey in comedy so far, and it was super inspiring to me. And I was like, man, you're the modern day philosopher. Because just the way he speaks and like he connects the dots. I'm like, this is what's happening in the news.
Yeah, you're right.
I'm like, damn, man, like this is good. This is good stuff. Right. It's inspiring. To me, it's inspiring. It's like, damn, this guy, like, you know, you had a good job, you went to a really, really good school, but you went out and did it. And it's like, you're actually doing this, man. Like, to me, it's inspiring.
Yeah.
Modern day philosopher.
Yeah. Man, I'm a philosophizer. But the problem is, you know, the come up, right? It takes a while for your little waves to make their way, you know, around.
It's not meant
world.
to be easy, though.
Yeah.
It's not meant to be easy.
Exactly,
whoever said
right?
it was easy was lying to you.
Exactly, dude. If it was easy, it would be this pool that's already kind of like flooded. It would be fucked. If this was easy, then things would be way harder. Like in the long run, if things were actually easy to make it through, there's gotta be the systems in place to weed people out.
Absolutely. Less is
Otherwise,
more.
too many people make it.
Less is more. 100%. I think so. Like, more people won't make it, but I think less is more, right? Like the less work that you do, you're probably going to have a bigger impact if you're dedicating your time towards what it is that you sort of want to do and not consuming your time with wasteful activities.
Exactly, yeah. Like, I mean, I post this podcast all over, right? That for an example. Like, I mean, I read all of Gary Vaynerchuk's marketing books, right? Just to get some background, because I come from corporate engineering. Yeah. I'm dipping into media and sharing via social platforms, etc. So got some background on that. The key, you stretch yourself out so thin trying to be on Twitter, Instagram, everything. You gotta choose 2 or 3.
That's it.
Gotta choose if no more than 3. Otherwise, you will
dominate
lose your
that.
mind. Yeah,
I would even say just focus on one, man, and just dominate that space.
They tie. If you Instagram, you can't ignore Instagram. YouTube is the basis of everything, mm-hmm. and Facebook is the center point for all of comedic communication in the community. Right. So those 3 I gotta use.
And I think what you're doing with those 3 is you're basically trying to create a community, right? Community of people who can sort of resonate with whatever it is that you're sort of doing, and something that's relatable for them and something that they enjoy, that they're willing to spend some time on and establish a connection with you. And that's what social media gives everybody an opportunity to do.
Exactly. But early on in the state that I'm in right now, I'm doing these podcasts. I'm cutting little videos to promote it and be like, hey, check out the podcast, blah, 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 right? Mm-hmm. But I'm like cutting videos that are like, some are like stories, some are like tips, some are like funny things, and I'm throwing them into the ecosystem that is Facebook, into the ecosystem that is Instagram, into the ecosystem that is YouTube.
Right.
And they touch different, their tentacles reach different people completely. Like I'm seeing that. I may get pushback on a video on Facebook and people loved it on Instagram.
Yeah. Well, I think when you spend more time towards it too, right, you'll eventually hone in on, hey, you know what?
Where I sit in this ecosystem.
Exactly. What your audience is. And then at that point, you sort of have to decide that this is going to be my distribution channel, and I'm going to figure out, you probably have to market, or you probably have to spend some ad dollars, and you have to market heavily to that audience to be a distribution system.
Like, for example, with this podcast, as an analogy, I record a podcast and then I have 3 dartboards set up and I'm throwing darts at 3 different dartboards.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I don't know what the bullseye is. It's not the middle.
Exactly.
And you don't know where it is, right?
That's the grind though, my friend.
Yeah.
Right? That's the grind. It's like, you probably have to do 2 to 3 years of that.
I get that, but clearing up my schedule. So pretty much I don't do engineering at all anymore.
Right.
And that was the best decision I made. I pretty much went from making money aside. I make a 15% of the income I used to make before.
Yeah.
But that is all I need to live. Before, my mindset was, how do I make the most amount of money possible?
Right.
Now my mindset is, what do I need to live on a monthly basis? And how do I do as little as possible to get that?
Yeah.
Because I'm investing my time into all of these efforts.
100%.
Right?
Money to me is just a score. Like, it's the score of society.
Exactly. That's
what money
exactly
is.
what it is. Our Instagram followers is another version of a score these days. We just have a couple of metrics that people understand. Money, followers,
100%. That's what it is.
views on YouTube, right?
Yeah.
We have a couple of metrics that anybody like in the world would understand. So those are the most coveted ones. Money's always your worth in US dollars is always the number one score for like pretty much humans on earth.
Yeah.
Your worth in the US dollar, right?
That's just how the human brain works.
Yeah, that's
right. Everybody's just chasing the dollar or whatever you may call it. But I think that's what people have to do less of. Right? Like, you gotta.
It's hard to. It's like you were saying, we were brought into this mentality. You gotta get the degree. Even before the mentality of the degree, money has ruled our lives, especially from an immigrant perspective.
Yeah, that's a solo travel, man. That's what I'm saying. Get out of here. Get out of here. Experience the world. See what else is out there. Get out of your little bubble, right? And see what else is out there. And then you'll be able to actually do something with your life that you want to do.
What were there any moments in your solo travel where you're like, okay, I think I bit off a little bit more than I could chew now?
Of course, dude. I was in Costa Rica. I was in a hostel, and these 2 Venezuelan guys come through, and these guys have like tatted up, like fully. I thought they were coming to jail or something, and I'm just tripping balls. Like, you have to sleep there with them.
Yeah.
So I didn't expect this. I didn't sign up for this, right? But you know what? Like. And I could tell you the story that's what happened to me too. So it just gives you more confidence maybe. Like, I don't know what the right word or how to explain that properly, but there's been many instances on solo travel that I've sort of gone through that I was shit scared. But going through that, now I feel very fearless in terms of what I'm doing right now, because I think people have it way, 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 way worse. I'm very appreciative of the opportunities that I sort of have, and I'm able to do what I can do with a mentality of being fearless.
So what ended up happening with those guys?
Man, like, I thought they were going to rob me. I think they were going to steal my shit, but nothing. They were cool guys. They were chill.
I thought they were just a scuba instructors. They're just cool guys, you know?
Yeah.
What you just in Australia, right?
I was just in Australia.
How's Australia?
Australia was fantastic.
Where'd you go?
I went to Sydney, and then I went up to Cairns, which is the Great Barrier Reef. So I did some scuba diving.
That's dying, right?
It's dying, man. You can see the corals dying. But that was a fantastic experience. I'm so glad I did that. I always wanted to go to Australia as a kid. And it was fantastic. I kind of went on a work trip, so I was working there for 2 months, basically. I had meetings set up via and this is another thing that people don't understand, how much government support we have for entrepreneurship, no matter what it is that you sort of do. There's opportunity.
The grant for you.
Exactly. I didn't pay a dime to go on my trip. It was paid for. It was all sponsored from the government with a program with IBM. And I was working with the export manager, export international. So Canada has these export treaties with basically everybody in the world.
Yeah.
And they have these government.
NAFTA with Mexico and the States.
Right. And they basically have these people in international trade divisions to increase the import and export between the countries. And they have a Rolodex over there that they'll connect you with to their distribution partners locally. So as an example, I was working with the international trade guy from Sydney who set up all my meetings for me. So I had my meeting set up. It was all paid for. I just had to show up and pitch what I had to do for Fortuna.
Did anything come to fruition from it?
Yeah, absolutely. We got 4 distribution partnerships and we got about 30 clients from Australia, and it's been only 6 months.
Hell yeah, that's what I'm talking about. And you got the fucking scuba dive within.
And I got the scuba dive. I lived out at a sailboat for two days, man. That was fantastic.
Just in the middle of the water?
In the middle of the water.
How was that?
That was fantastic. Waking up 6 o'clock in the morning, going scuba diving, seeing turtles, sharks, stingray, all types of marine fish. It's amazing.
How many hours are you clocking in the water?
You're doing each dive, which is roughly an hour. So I did 4.
So there's so many hours of boat time in between. What are you doing?
Of course. You're chilling on the boat, man. You're snorkeling, like you're having a good time on the boat. There's other people around with you.
Is it one of those flat? What's it called?
Catamaran?
Catamaran style?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. So there's a lot of walking room and you can write.
Yeah, so there's a catamaran and I went on a sailboat. On a sailboat, like you have beds underneath.
Because fuck it, Canada government's paying, right?
There's like a deck, so you're hanging out, doing your thing. You can do whatever, man. It's a good 2 days, just get away from it all. No technology.
What was your favorite solo travel destination?
I would say Thailand and Australia.
Yeah?
Thailand and Australia.
A lot of people recommend Thailand.
Oh, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. First of all, it's super, super affordable. So if you quit your job and you don't have money, that's where you go because you can have lobsters and steak dinner for $5. You can live for super cheap, which is nice. But I think the vibe there is really good. It depends what type of trip you want. I personally wanted to I was in sales, right? I was talking to people all the time and stuff, so I kind of wanted to get away from it all. I kind of just wanted to go out in the mountains, go out in the water and just like be myself, right? So to me, like I wanted lots of nature. So Thailand, if you go out to like the islands, I did island hopping. The nature is just fantastic.
What's the level of English in the islands?
Medium.
Medium?
It's not that good.
But tourism is probably a massive part of their GDP,
Huge.
right?
They're the nicest people alive.
Oh, everyone recommends. Everywhere I go in the world, people say, "Oh, Thailand." So now I know when I go there, it's gonna be such a hub of tourism. Because everywhere I go in the world, they're talking about their time in Thailand.
Yeah.
So is it like people are there from everywhere?
People are there from every single part of the world. Bangkok is just super, super packed.
Yeah.
Extremely
I heard you
packed.
see like old white men with young boys and boy girls.
Like I would never, if I were to go, which I am going to, but I would never even stay in Bangkok. Like last time I stayed in Bangkok for like a night, and then I went to the islands the next day. This time I literally booked like a connecting flight from Bangkok to the islands.
Right away to the islands.
Right away to the islands. Bangkok's just a waste of time. It's just a zoo, man.
Yeah. People say, and I heard it smells bad too.
Yeah.
That was a one person's testimony, but still.
Yeah.
Oh man, have you ever gone to Vietnam?
No, I haven't.
I might go to Vietnam later this year.
Yes,
I'm excited, man.
Do it. Dude,
just like the lush forest, and it's supposed to be amazing too. Like the nature, the people, the same kind of vibe. So affordable.
I've heard it's phenomenal. I haven't been. I've been to Cambodia, which is nice. Cambodia too. Do Cambodia as well.
Yeah, I think my boys are booking it, so I think they're gonna pair up that. Yeah, you gotta do that itinerary. Yeah,
go to Angkor Wat, and that's like do the sunrise over there at 4 o'clock in the morning. That's where they filmed the Tomb Raider.
Angkor Wat?
Yeah, Angkor Wat.
Cambodia?
Ooh. Siem Reap.
Hell yeah, man. That's a perfect ending point, I think. Dude, we did our 70 minutes, man. That's amazing. Hey, is there anything you want to plug, share with the people? Do you want to...
just check out our website at www.fortuna.ai.
And just give a quick blurb of what like your 30-second like elevator pitches, just so maybe.
Absolutely. So we are a artificial intelligence startup that's based out of right here in Toronto, and basically we're a customer creation platform. So we help customers such as financial advisors, auto dealerships win new customers, and how we do that is by personalized videos. So we use personalized videos at scale to automate your sales.
Boom! Personalized videos at scale to automate your Sales, what? You heard it here, Fortuna AI. Check that out on Google. And actually, I'll leave that info on the podcast, as always. And again, if you are in Toronto, I'm having my Plus Time monthly comedy show September 4th, 9 p.m. That's at Free Times Cafe. On Instagram, I'll have all that info. If you come out, last month's show was packed. It's always a sick lineup, always new comics. That's September 4th. I'll plug it again, probably next couple episodes. Bro, thanks so much. Let's do this again, okay?
Thank you for having me. It was amazing, bro.
Thanks for listening. Tell your friends about the Immigrant section. And remember, full YouTube videos come out the Friday afterwards. So this one will be out Tuesday, like the 25th or something like that. And then the YouTube video will follow on that Friday. Again, thank you so much. Peace.